So here is Nodin, and we are on session 8 of working with him. So I'm just working a little bit here on leading. He's doing pretty good about letting me put a lead rope on him in his paddock. And he's a pretty good boy. He's pretty curious, pretty goofy, but he is sensitive as well. So I have to take the time and just work on our little scratches and slowly touching him in the beginning. And I'm still trying to work on getting closer to those hind legs and getting him comfortable with that. And then again, making sure I give him the time to kind of be like, oh, that wasn't so bad. And he did start to take some cookies, which is really good. He's been a little bit off and on about taking a treat. So I like to use little alfalfa cubes or my stable feed. And if I can, I'll use hay. I'll use whatever they will, but sometimes they just get a little bit like, meh, no, that's okay. So I just try to use it as much as he's willing to take it. So you see I'm going back to the hay box to see if I can get him interested with some of his alfalfa. And again, he's just kind of like muzzling it around a little bit, but he is taking some small bites. So any positive associations I can get, I will like to use just to build up his confidence and work on the relaxation. And again, you can see I'm just going through, kind of touching all the things, letting him know it's okay. And he's doing pretty good. I was able to touch a little bit further down on the leg, which was good. So I gave him some alfalfa for that. You can see he's still a little nervous, so he kind of moves off to the side afterwards. But now working on the left hind. And I can almost get him to lift up. And again, he just wants to move a little sideways because he gets a little nervous, but that's okay. Making sure I give him the break in between. And here I sped this up a little bit. He's pretty good with his front feet now. He's pretty comfortable with that. And again, after I kind of pick up every foot, I give him a second and then go and pick up the other one. So now we've graduated to where I feel like I can put the foot in between my legs, like in the farrier stance. So I was pretty happy with that. And then again, I'm just kind of move him around, come in for a little break, and then that's his little jelly ball he does like to play with. He's pretty funny with it. But I was trying to just see if I could get him just to like tap it with his foot. You know, it's good for them to have something around their feet and not be too worried about it. But he is, in fact, trying to step on it. But he is pretty much a goofball that way. And I'm really excited about this guy. He's a pretty nice height. He is around 15'2", and you can see he's got a really nice long neck. It's going to be really fun to kind of see him grow and fill out this year. But I think he's going to make a really nice eventing prospect. So now I'm working on that right front, and again the farrier stance. And he actually handled that pretty well. And then again, we're walking around. I probably should have moved the ball out after we played with it for a second. But now I have another rope that I like to do some rope work with. It's a very soft cotton rope, so it's a little bit different than the lead rope that I use so it has a much softer feel. And you can see he just still gets a little bit nervous. Oftentimes he'll stick his neck up a little bit or put himself in that C shape, as I call it. So I'm just going to do a little bit of approach and retreat, because I want him to just be okay with when I have stuff coming towards him a little bit here. I'm just going to use this space and then give him a second. That time that was good. He didn't like really lean away. And I'm just going to work on just draping the rope over him and just hanging out with him a little bit. Really making it very non-threatening. And then giving him that second. And you can see I'm chatting with my student, but sometimes that's a good distraction. So I work on keeping my energy pretty low. You can see my shoulders are rounded. I try to keep my head a little tilted down. I don't want him to think that it's time to move or anything like that. I'm just going to pretend like I'm brushing him with the rope, so he can learn to really start to relax. And it's the same if you have to increase movement a little bit. You still want to make sure your heart rate is nice and calm, which sometimes can be hard when they're nervous. But he's doing a really good job. And again, I make sure I put the breaks in between so he has a little bit of time. And again, just working my way down, just again with the really nice soft rope, letting it kind of flop over to each side. And I really like doing this because it's good preparation for the saddle pad or the surcingle, and then building up to the saddle. So while he's a pretty good boy, he is a little bit insecure. So it's just something I have to be really mindful about. And again, making sure I let him have that time. So now I'm going to start to create a little bit of distance between me and the rope. So kind of in that space that they can sometimes get a little bit nervous about. And then I also like having it kind of drag around his legs so he gets used to things being underneath him and around him. And it's, again, really good prep work for eventually if they ever get their foot caught into a vine. I think it's really important to have the foundations of good rope work. I've had it really help me out in a bind and with my horses not being nervous if they are to get tangled up. So now I'm going to do just a little bit of work of having him follow a little bit of the feel of the rope around his rib cage. And I'm not pulling very hard. I'm just putting a little bit of resistance against the rope. Just a little. So again, I just want him to learn to follow a little bit of the feel. So you see it's a little bit down by his legs, because you just never know what can happen sometimes. So this is always really good prep work. And again, a little bit further past the flank. And all this stuff does help as well, getting him used to having something around his belly without it being too claustrophobic. And he's handling that really well. So now I'm working towards kind of more so the flank area. And if he wants to move, it's totally fine. Again, just trying to see if I can get him to follow a little bit of that feel. And then I let the rope kind of go down by his front legs. So it's around his front legs, and he actually handled that really, really well. So he wasn't too bothered at all by that. And just letting it kind of go up and down the legs. Again, he's good with me touching his legs, but You can tell he's still a little bit unsure. So I just have to build his confidence up and reassure him that, hey, it's not a snake. It's not going to eat your leg. So now I'm going to just focus on one foot and work on getting him to follow the feel forward. This is a really good prep for when we have to put the foot on a hoof stand. So kind of teaching them to bring their foot forward and out. Oftentimes they get really comfortable with us just picking up the foot, but pulling it out in front of them is completely different. And now I'm going to work on the hind end, and I just went to kind of flick it, and he said, that hit my booty. So I thought, okay, I'm going to work my way down. So putting the rope on his bum right there, I'm going to let it slowly slide down. I don't want it to hit down past the hocks yet because I think that's going to worry him pretty good. So I'm just going to keep it up a little higher and see if he'll follow the feel. Now, this can cause a bigger reaction in some horses, which is fairly normal, especially in the beginning when they just start to feel the rope. So I'm just going to give him a rub of reassurance right there. And trying to keep it up a little higher so I don't scare him by letting it go down past his hocks. We're getting close to that, but he's handling that pretty well. And again, when I put a little bit of feel on it, and then letting it touch the lower leg now, and he seems okay with it. It wasn't that big of a reaction. And then making sure that he has some time in between. Getting some nice lick and chews. And he's still a little braced. It's just going to be a work in progress, building the confidence. I'm going to work with flipping the rope around his bum now. It does take a little bit of practice, being in control of all of your ropes and making sure that it doesn't get tangled around your legs or anything like that. So here I'm just working on keeping the one rope, because if you have one that's very sensitive, you can keep your distance and still kind of work with having them get more comfortable with the rope around them. And also I find it helps start to teach them a little bit of driving. So a little bit of that positioning. But now my rope has gone down a little far. So you see he had a little bit of reaction when I was trying to pull it up, but that's okay. We're just going to work through it a little bit. And again, I should have moved the stupid ball out of the way, which thanks Nodin for kicking it for me. And again, just putting just a little bit of resistance on the rope to see if I can get him to follow that feel. And setting him up for eventually when I can ground drive him. And that was looking pretty good. And I'm going to work on flipping that rope off. And also anytime you can kind of drag it around them and have them follow, that also helps as well. And again, you see he took a nice deep breath. It's just really important. Every horse is very different. Some can handle if you go a little bit quicker, but sometimes I have to go, I need to really make sure I give them that time in between. And there he really handled the rope nicely. And so then I thought, okay, well, we'll work on isolating just the one hind leg since he's still a little bit sticky about me picking it up. So the rope again helps me have a little bit more confidence in distance, and I can work on helping him follow the feel of picking it up. And there's no knot. It's not tied on his leg. It's just around it. So I'm working on trying to pick it up here because I wanted to take the rope off, and I was a little bit in the danger spot right there. But because he got worried because he felt the rope kind of dangle when I went to pick it up. So I'm just going to work a little bit here of getting him to follow the feel of the rope. The rope still stayed on there. Again, it was a little bit of a pickle moment, but that sometimes happens. And I'm trying to make sure I'm very aware of where all my ropes are, making sure I'm not tangled up. And I'm going to see if I can get him to follow that feel again of pulling that fetlock forward. You can see he's just still a little bit nervous. And once I have the rope up, then typically if I can take the rope off, they're like, oh, gee, thanks. Thanks, friend. That was helpful. So now I'm going to try to go in without the rope. And again, this is a worrisome part always, working with the hind feet when they're a little nervous. I have to really make sure I'm in control of my heart rate so I don't kind of up the stress level for them. So then working on the hind right with the rope and just getting him to follow the feel. He's doing pretty good with this one. And just getting it to kind of go up and down the leg also really helps. Again, this is very common. I've had horses before, if they just step over a hose and they get the hose kind of hooked, or even if they go and carry a pole sometimes when you're doing a jump school, that can scare them. But kind of teaching them that if they relax and kind of keep their cool, and there's no need to panic, then they end up doing much better. So then asking him to come forward. And now I'm just going to go through and reiterate picking up his feet. Making sure I give him enough slack so I'm not pulling him around. He forgot that he had three other legs for a second there, but he was pretty good about that. And again, then I'm working and being a little closer to the hind end while I pick up the front foot, but that was very nice. And I gave him a break, and then working on the other side. Again, he understands the assignment about the front feet. It's just been a matter of building it, connecting the dots for the hind feet. And then working our way to the hind right. And he was very good for that. So I'm going to leave it at that. I thought that was a really good session.